Hello and welcome to Yarrow Kae Academy of Healing, Expanding, Spiritually Transforming, and Mastering Energetics. I am Yarrow Kae, leadership mentor, nervous system genius, clinically trained therapist, spiritual teacher, and energetic sorceress, which really just means I help you master energetics for my science nerds. Now, today we're going to dive into your DNA and how your DNA composes your life. Very interconnected with your nervous system. First, let's take a breath. Close your eyes if that feels good for you. Bring your hands to your body. Let your shoulders relax, let your jaw relax. And take a long, slow, deep breath from the crown of your head to your third eye, to your throat and the back of your neck, to your chest and your heart and your solar plexus and your lower abdomen and the base of your spine. Settling all the way into your body. Noticing any tension or tightness, any stale or stagnant energy that wants to come forward. Allowing it all to be there without trying to move it or fix it or change it. Allowing it all to be. And when you're ready, slowly come back in. Maybe rub your palms on your thighs for a second. So the reason I start you with a breath is that everything comes back to how embodied we are. We can literally know all of the things and our brain will drive us insane, and it won't matter if it's not embodied through our being, through our bodies. Everything we feel, everything that happens for us needs to be processed through our bodies, alchemized, transformed, transmuted, metabolized, integrated, because otherwise we're just running through our head. And so a lot of people will give you a lot of knowledge, right? And I'm also going to do that. However, I thread in embodiment moments because without that embodiment, it doesn't matter. Your nervous system will take over and it will hijack your mind, and you actually won't even know it's happening. And developing the consciousness to know that it's happening will ask you to come back to your body, right? So even once you start developing that consciousness, it's going to bring you back into your body. Now let's dive in. The work that I do literally rewires your DNA. We are not a victim to our DNA. We often think we are. I even read a comment someone left on a post of one of my clients the other day, and she said, you know, it's hereditary or it's genetic, or this is happening to me because of the way that it's carried through my lineage. And I said, that's a yes and, because DNA expresses through epigenetics. So what that means is your environment matters. How much scarcity there was, whether you were held, whether you were seen, whether you were attuned to. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you can always go back and reparent little you, your inner sweet inner child, and that will start to rewire your DNA because it will create safety in your nervous system. So let's talk about this. Your DNA lays the blueprint for the development of your nervous system. Say that again. Your DNA lays the blueprint for the development of your nervous system. So it is the birthing of your nervous system, which is fascinating because it's the divine feminine. It's coded for the divine feminine. It has a spiral like a sunflower, right? So you think about that spiral. Think about the spiral with the DNA. So it births your nervous system, which then becomes the divine masculine structure in your body, which is how safe we feel. It's how attuned we feel. It's how present we feel. It's how able we are to hold all of the things. How able we are to hold our creative expression, our freedom, our showing up in the world, who we are being in this world. That is our nervous system. So your nervous system creates your life, but before your nervous system, your DNA creates your nervous system. And so I want you all to just take a moment and think about your parents. I know that may or may not be fun, depending upon who you are, but just think about your parents. How do they relate to the world? Who do they show up as in the world? What are their thoughts? What are their beliefs? What are their opinions? What does their nervous system feel like? How did your nervous system feel with them when you were little? And just think about it for a second. If you want to pause, maybe start doing some journaling. Journal about your parents. What were their nervous systems like? What are they like, excuse me, today, if they are still alive? How do you feel in their presence? And then what happens in your body as you're writing about this? So all of that, and maybe you paused me to take a few minutes with this, all of that lives in your DNA. All of that lives in your DNA. I'm letting that land because so often we want to be a victim to the present reality, and the present is dictated by the past. And nothing new can be created unless you are actually functioning from the present. So think about that for a second. You have this trauma coded into your nervous system. I'm sure you all felt it as you started to think about your parents' nervous systems. And if you didn't feel it, then drop a question below, because we all have trauma in this world. We are an addicted and traumatized world. No one was effectively attuned to. If you think about your parents, they're rushing, they're running, they're busying. Can they hold your emotions? Can they hold your pain? It doesn't necessarily mean we have this big T trauma. It doesn't mean we've experienced a war or even a divorce. Many of us have. It doesn't mean we've had abuse or neglect, though many of us have had subtle neglect, and it shows up as a million different paper cuts, which is what we call it, right? It's a million different paper cuts. And as Dr. Gabor Mate says, it's not what you received, it's what you didn't receive. So I'll say that again. It's not what you received, it's not what happened to you, it's what you didn't receive, right? And sometimes that is the formation of the trauma. Okay, so here we have our parents and their nervous systems are dysregulated and they have unprocessed trauma, and then it gets passed down to us. And then if you have kids, potentially you're passing it down to your children, but you're here, so you're doing some work to shift that, right? And so you have to really think about the expression of your DNA. How is it expressing in the world? Because your DNA is composing your life, right? Your DNA births your nervous system. Your nervous system then determines what feels safe to you, what you feel capable of, what it will allow you to do without going into a trauma response and shutting you down because, oh, that's not safe anymore. Only going this far is safe. Like, we can make this amount of money, we can have this much love, we can experience this much joy, and then it has to stop it because it starts to get protective. And so as you're sitting with whatever the trauma is, that's the expression of the DNA. Then the DNA expresses the nervous system. Then the nervous system creates everything that's happening in your reality right now. And so much of this is unconscious, and your nervous system wants to keep you unconscious because it wants to keep you safe. Just take a breath and land with that. Maybe rewind and watch it again. It's very systematic. And the way that I work in the Yarrow Kae world and Yarrow Kae Academy is we rewire your DNA, which rewires your nervous system, which rewires your brain, which shifts your thoughts so that you actually create an entirely new reality. Your nervous system is the conductor of your life, and your DNA is the composer of your life. Your DNA is the music through which you express. So your DNA can be healed. It will ask you to heal the scarcity, the survival, the negative thinking, because your body experiences those thoughts and it permeates through your cells, which goes into your DNA and determines how your DNA is expressing. And so just think about what you're feeding yourself. What are the thoughts? What are the ways of being? How are you showing up in the world? How much are you ruminating, obsessing, judging, comparing, worrying, berating yourself? It is a radical act of courage to love yourself truly, to honor yourself, to revere yourself, to treat yourself as the most precious thing in the world. The most precious thing in the world. And that makes me feel emotional because most people do not treat themselves that way. Most people are so berating and criticizing and judging and shaming of themselves. And so then that lives in your cells, and then that goes into your DNA, that becomes expression, that becomes the way your nervous system shows up in the world. That's how it knows safety. And then you feel stuck and you feel broke and you feel bitter and you feel resentful and frustrated and angry and sad and depressed and anxious and all of the things. And then you start to express these things physically. Maybe cancer, PCOS, indigestion, IBS, inflammation, maybe mental. It expresses in so many different ways. Maybe you just feel apathetic and disconnected from your spiritual self, from your life. And it starts with how safe your nervous system feels. Because as you start to permeate that safety through your nervous system, you start to actually rewire your DNA, and that shifts the way you're relating to the world. And so when you start to move out of those maladaptive ways of being, because that's what they are, obsessing, ruminating, fretting, worrying, judging, comparing, overthinking, over-intellectualizing, busying, those are all maladaptive coping mechanisms. There are ways that your nervous system has known safe because they are survival mechanisms. Like if you think about humanity, we have lived in survival mode for much of our lives. And if you go back and you watch Survival versus Abundance, I break all of that down. And then if you go back and you watch the nervous system healing, our nervous system healing the Yarrow Kae way, I tell you how I do it differently. You have to heal your nervous system. It literally all comes back to that. I had that download in 2020. In order to receive, I have to feel safe to receive. In order to feel safe to receive, I have to feel safe to hold it all. I have to be in my personal power, my emotional intelligence. Your little Yarrow has to be attuned to so that I feel safe to actually show up in the world and be who I am. If your nervous system's not on board, you will sabotage yourself and you'll call it self-sabotage and you'll shame yourself. But the truth of it will be that your nervous system literally just didn't feel safe for you to take those steps. And so you have to create the safety within your body, within your nervous system to feel safe to show up. And when you do that, your DNA starts to rewire and it begins to orchestrate with the universe, with the higher consciousness, with your soul's purpose, with your soul's plan. Like it literally creates music. You are a composer through your DNA. So what do you want to compose? What do you want the music of your soul's expression to sound like in this world? Just sit with that for a second. You actually get to decide this. It may take some deep healing. It may take some radical honesty around how you have these, maybe they're subtle negative thoughts. And those negative thoughts are protective. And so you can't just stop the thoughts or berate yourself for the thoughts. You have to create enough safety in your body that the thoughts actually stop happening and that you feel safe to connect to the sacred. My goodness, look around the world. Are we attuned to connecting to the sacred? No, no, we're not. Like every morning I wake up, I make tea, I do some bathroom things, some morning things, and then I sit in sacred presence and meditation and chanting. And I imbue golden radiant light into the codes of into my cells. I code them into my cells, right? Like that's not what we're conditioned to do. We're conditioned to jump out of bed and drink a bunch of coffee and run around like a psycho and maybe eat a bunch of shit for breakfast and then rush into our emails and our workday and our phone and our things and our drama and all the stuff that's going on. And then we're exhausted and we come home and we crash out and we binge watch TV or we scroll on our phones and we don't really have any connection with our families or our partners because we're exhausted, and that's exhausting because then I'm gonna have to deal with the mountain of resentment I have towards that person because I haven't been taught how to deal with my feelings. And so because I haven't been taught how to deal with my feelings, I'm going to avoid that person and then I'm going to drown myself in all of the things that are maladaptive. And that's how we're taught to live life. We're not taught to live life through the sacred, through threading the sacred through our lives, through threading divinity through our lives. And so I get up and I imbue my nervous system, my cells, my DNA with golden radiant light. I meditate, I chant, I honor what's sacred to me. Sometimes I journal. It sets the tone for my day. When I start to get a little activated, if it's unnecessary, I bring my hands to my body and I bring myself back to myself. I feel into the essence of who I am, which is what your DNA actually is. It's the essence of who you are. It is the coding of how you are meant to express yourself into the world. Like That's like literal magic right there. Like it's magic. Like you are magic. You are magic. Do you know that? Do you know that you're magic? Ugh, it just really touches my soul. Like, think about it. Think about all the humans on this planet and the codes of magic that we carry. And we're not taught to embody it. We're not taught to hold it. We're not taught to be with it. We're not taught to attune our energetic frequency so that we're actually expressing through the sacred. We're taught to disconnect, go to addictive behaviors, berate ourselves, criticize ourselves, judge ourselves. We're not taught to actually come home to ourselves and express from the deepest core of our essence the flower and the music of who we are. So if you think about your DNA, it's like a blossoming flower that's composing music with the universe. Like, that's fucking cool. That makes me excited. I love to think about that. And so, what I want you all to do is to create your DNA. Who are you at your core? Like, get still, sit with that essence. Who is that person? And if your mind goes blank, that's okay. Develop a meditation and a chanting practice so that you start to come back to yourself, so that you start to hold yourself, so that you come back to the sacred. And it may take time. Your nervous system is deeply wired for survival, for contraction, for obsessing, ruminating, for protecting you. And it's necessary. It's been necessary in life. And so it will take you having a radical act of courage to come back to yourself, to create a sacred practice that imbues imbues your cells with a different vibration. And once you create that safety in your body, you start to think different thoughts, which feeds your body different feelings, which then actually allows you to express your DNA at its purest essence. The thoughts you think, and I have a whole program called Emotions of the Language of the Universe where we talk about this. The thoughts you think only halfway create your emotions. And when they do create your emotions, they're often created through thoughts that are based off of a dysregulated nervous system. So you have to be able to discern, is this a created thought that's meant to be protective, that's creating an emotion that's meant to be protective, or is this a real emotion? And that takes a level of discernment. And so we want to heal our nervous systems, which means creating these sacred practices, having attunement, being held, being seen, being validated, and being called out on the sneaky BS ways that you're showing up in the world that's disconnecting you from your life. Heal your nervous system, which is going to rewire your DNA, which is going to create different thoughts, which is going to create different emotions, which is going to allow you to actually connect to expansion and joy. So, like all of those survival paradigm emotions that we broke down in scarcity versus abundance, or scarcity into abundance, on David E. Hawking's maps of consciousness. So the survival emotions, shame, fear, anger, all of those survival emotions, they need to be processed. They need to be metabolized so you can come to neutral, so you can go into higher elevated spiritual paradigm emotions like love and enlightenment and bliss and joy and connection and gratitude. That is where you start to expand. And so what I want you to do is really notice where you're contracting, and then start to breathe life into your cells, into your nervous system, so you feel like you can start to expand. Tap into your DNA sequence. Who are you coded? Who are you? Who are you coded with? Who are you? And what are your unique codes? Like, what are they? Are you expressing them into the world? You are the composer of your life. Where are you contracting? Where are you shutting down? Where are you holding on to certain ways of being because of your ego? Where are you not actually getting true with the truth of who your soul is? In 2014, it was downloaded through me. I meant to be a healer. And I was writing fiction at the time. I had been writing fiction for like 10 years. I was just starting to get some momentum in that. And it came through so clear. I don't want to write fiction anymore. I just want to help people heal. The timing of that had to be right. And so, can you trust the journey that maybe you're in an exploration of who you're actually meant to express as? Because it's all perfect. It's all perfectly designed. It's all perfectly aligned. It all is happening exactly as it's meant to. And when you fight that, when you resist that, when you have regret, when you can't forgive yourself, you're literally just keeping yourself in a loop, which is then going to contract your nervous system, which is going to break patterns in your DNA, and then you're going to express illness in your life, sickness, dis-ease, mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally. So when you can actually accept your entire journey, allow yourself to be who you are, which means exploring different facets of yourself and allowing it all to blossom perfectly through acceptance, surrender, forgiveness, allowing there to be magic in the unknown, that creates a calm nervous system, which creates DNA that is allowed to express in its unique coded way that it is meant to express. Your DNA is epigenetic. Again, this means that how it expresses is epigenetic. This means that your environment matters. So what environment are you creating for yourself today? How are you composing your life? And what orchestra are you creating with the universe? You are the composer of your life. You create your life. It starts with your DNA, leads into your nervous system, which leads into your brain, which goes into your higher mind, which allows you to actually have thoughts that are going to be expansive and joyful and abundant and free. Where are you contracting? Where are you expanding? Where are you disconnecting? Where are you connecting? Where are you blaming? Where are you taking ownership, but yet still having softness and gentleness with yourself and allowing yourself the grace of learning, of growing, of expanding, of being? This is so exciting. If you apply what I just shared with you in this video, you will literally change your life. Create a sacred practice, meditation and chanting. Journal when you want to. Focus on your internal world. You're meant to come home to yourself. Your internal world is coded with everything you need to know, and sometimes that internal world is accessed through other humans, but not through grasping on and clinging and holding on to other people, but rather through allowing the information you receive through your connections to show you what parts of you need holding, need attunement, need love, need care, need tenderness, or the parts of you that are getting activated into play, into eros, into joy, into new ways of being. Recently, I connected with someone who got me gardening and singing country music, and it lights me up. It's a new way of being. I've introduced people to electronic music and it's changed their whole lives. I've shown them new dimensions through psychedelic mushroom journeys. There are so many different ways that we access each other through each other, and it's all meant to guide us home to ourselves. As Ram Dass says, we're all just walking each other home. That doesn't necessarily mean we're holding each other's hands. Sometimes it's the fight you have that's guiding you to yourself. Sometimes it's the deep connection. Sometimes it's the sexual relationship. Sometimes it's the romance. Sometimes it's the rejection. Sometimes it's the heartbreak. Sometimes it's the giggles with your best friend late at night. Like, we literally are all walking each other home. And it all stems from inside, because everything is just a mirror and it's showing you more and more dimensions of yourself. And when you can get clearer into your being, you can actually express the musical delight that is your soul's purpose, that is you, that is your service, your mission, that is your heart, that is your being. And that is how you are the composer of your life. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for next week. If you have any questions, you can reach out on Instagram. You can drop a comment below. You can check out any of my programs I have coming up. Right now, we are in the portal July. If you're watching this in July of 2025, we're in the portal July. We just started. So reach out, ask questions, jump into my world if you want to go deeper into this. We all need to be held. We all need to be seen. We all need to be attuned to. We need spaces that help us nurture and expand. That is why I created the Yarrow Kae Academy of healing, expanding, spiritually transforming, and mastering energetics. Because when you master energetics, you shift your energetic vibration and you create an entirely new symphony in your life.